expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman and Robert Webb.
All right, welcome to the show. Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. Every day, noon to 2 p.m. right here on joynetradio.com. We talk about the things that affect our community. 855-525-5683 is the number. You can check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can also hit us up. Don't forget, if you miss any part of the show, you can also download the show from any of the podcasts. We're everywhere now. Spread the word. We are picking up other people in other parts of the country. One of the things that we wanted to do when we put this show together was to make sure that it was a national show. And we'll continue to bring that flavor to each and every one of you Monday through Friday right here on joynetradio.com. Now, what I'm doing right now is trying to get the YouTube feed up. But for whatever reasons, not the YouTube, but the Instagram feed up. One of the things I also want to talk about today is Michael Bloomberg. We kind of skipped over that. You know, he was in Little Rock for the Martin Luther King celebration. So we're going to talk about that today. Of course, we've got Black Facts headed your way. Are you paying attention to this farce that is taking place right in your eyes, that being the impeachment trial? If you're not, then you really don't get it. I'm going to be honest with you. You got to start paying attention to this, folks. This affects you. Okay? This affects you. So you better pay attention. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why it affects you today as well, because apparently we still haven't gotten it. And if we don't get it soon, I don't know when we're ever going to get it. I'm going to be honest with you, you know. So we got to pay attention to that today. We'll talk a little bit about Charles Starks. He's gotten his gun back. Do the mayor and that administration deserve a little credit for at least being resistant to giving his gun back, although once the judge ruled that he could get his gun back, you knew that was going to happen. But we'll talk about that a little bit today as well, because I think it's something that we need to pay attention to. But also, rehashing that is not going to solve the problem. What do you need to do? What can you do? And by the way, Starks has been sent to the training division. We'll get into that. Who is he training? Okay. That's funny. Also, I'm going to give you 20 quotes that Dr. King made that you very rarely hear about. But it's important for us to understand who Dr. King really was. Okay? We need to stop allowing people to steal our narrative, to sanitize it, to make it as though it didn't happen. This to me, upon reading at many of those quotes, and I've heard many of them, but this is tantamount, as far as I'm concerned, as to say slaves liked slavery. That's just how serious this is to me. This is tantamount to saying slaves enjoyed slavery, which is ridiculous. So we're going to give you 20 quotes that Dr. King stated. I think you'll find them interesting. And we'll dibble and dabble a little bit more in the Willie Lynch letter. And I'll tell you how I discovered that letter. My dear friend, Dr. Rosa Milligan, thank you. But we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's go ahead and jump into Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
You know, every day we like to do Black Facts. I'm going to do another one today, and hopefully to destroy more myths about history. Because if we don't know history, then we are doomed to repeat it. And clearly, what's going on today states that we are repeating history. Okay? So let's talk a little bit, because we hear this all the time. Oh, he's an Uncle Tom. Oh, he's an Uncle Tom. Being that is of a negative connotation. So I want to try to set the record straight for who Uncle Tom really was and why you need to stop using that terminology. Just like you need to stop using the N-word. Can't seem to convince many of you all of that as of yet. Now, when I read some of the Willie Lynch letter later on, I think you'll begin to get the crux of why you have to stop using the N-word. Okay? So, let's start. Uncle Tom was a man who refused to beat black women. Now, that's really all you need to know about who Uncle Tom really was. Uncle Tom was a man who refused to beat black women. We need to question the things we take as fact. That is an ongoing process. Today, on Raising Proud Black Children Facebook page, a member shared something that is important for all of us to know. It concerned Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was originally a character in Harriet Beecher Stowe's 1852 novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Stowe's melodramatic story humanized the suffering of slavery for white audiences by portraying Tom as a Jesus-like figure who is ultimately martyred, beaten to death by a cruel master because he refuses to betray the whereabouts of two women who had escaped from slavery. That's in the novel, Uncle Tom. Now let's be realistic. Uncle Tom was not a real person. This guy was portrayed in the novel by Harriet Beecher Stowe, Uncle Tom's Cabin. And also interesting is the man that Uncle Tom is believed to be largely based on, Josiah Henson. As the Post says, most black folks have heard or used the term Uncle Tom when we refer to a sellout or someone we feel is tap dancing for the attention and acceptance of other races. It has always been used as a derogatory term to infer that this type of person who cozied up to the slave master. Did you know that the reference and analogy is totally wrong? Uncle Tom was a man who refused to beat black women. Uncle Tom was a man who refused to tell on other slaves. Uncle Tom was a man who would put cotton in other slaves' bags at night so they wouldn't get beat. Uncle Tom was a man who helped 100 slaves get free long before the Underground Railroad. Uncle Tom was a man that once free established the first laborer school for other fugitive slaves. His name, Josiah Henson. Josiah Henson was an author, abolitionist, and minister. Born into slavery in Port Tobacco, Charles County, Maryland, he escaped to Upper Canada in 1830 and founded a settlement and laborer school for other fugitive slaves at Don, near Dresden, in Kent County, Upper Canada, British Columbia. So stop calling these sellouts Uncle Tom. That's a compliment. It's Sambo that was the sellout, who would do anything for his slave master's approval. It was Sambo who would snitch on his people just to get at a boy from his handler. Uncle Tom is a man to be respected, not associated with the Sambo dog. It was other blacks who turned his name into a negative connotation. New Age blacks of the time felt the image was too passive and not militant enough, so they started using it in a negative way and declaring Uncle Tom is dead. At the same time, blacks were saying he wasn't militant enough. Whites were in fear of him because his good nature stood as a mirror to their evil, demonic ways and shed light on the horrible treatment of slaves. They started banning the plays and books about Uncle Tom's Cabin all over the South because of how powerful his image really was. Shame on us for destroying a just and upright man for the sake of some cause that could have been advanced without degrading this brother. Shame on us. Also, one commenter pointed out, actually, there's more to the story. The character of Uncle Tom, as characterized by Harriet Beecher Stowe, was a ripoff of Josiah Henson's autobiography, which he wrote after leaving the U.S. for Canada. He twice tried to buy his own freedom, only to have white oppressors keep increasing the price. Ultimately, he escaped with his family to Canada, where he became an activist. In her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe recharacterized his original story of aggressive resistance as one of passivity. This was one of the major novels that played on the trope of the all-forgiving, non-threatening, sweet Jesus-acting Negro, one that was much more palatable to white readers. In the novel, the women were the ones actively fighting for their freedom, not the primary male character. While kissing the asses of their masters, his most positive act was his refusal to whip a black woman who were plotting their escape. The reason James Baldwin and others rejected his depiction of black men was that it reinforced the ideology that black men should accept oppression without fighting back, a standard white men were never held to. That's the rest of the story, and that term gained its derogatory connotation. Here's a quote from the 19th century black publication, The Liberator. Uncle Tom's character is sketched with great power and rare religious perception. It triumphantly exemplifies the nature, tendency, and results of Christian non-resistance. We are curious to know whether Mrs. Stowe is a believer in the duty of non-resistance for the white man under all possible outrage and peril as for the black man. For whites in parallel circumstances, it is often said, talk not of overcoming evil with good, it is madness. Talk not peacefully, submitting to chains and stripes. It is base servility. Talk not of servants being obedient to their masters. Let the blood of tyrants flow. How is this to be explained or reconciled? Is there one law of submission and non-resistance for the black man, and another of rebellion and conflict for the white man? When it is the whites who are trodden in the dust, does Christ justify them in taking up arms to vindicate their rights? And when it is the blacks who are thus treated, Christ require them to be patient, harmless, long-suffering, and forgiving? Are there to Christ? James Weldon Johnson, a prominent figure of the Harlem Renaissance, expresses an antipathy opinion in his autobiography. For my part, I was never an admirer of Uncle Tom, nor of his type of goodness, but I believe that there were lots of old Negroes foolishly good as he. So the next time you hear the word being used, why not impart who Uncle Tom really was? And that's our black fact for today.
Radio for more dynamic black facts, our culture, our history, our people on JourneyRadio.com.
And if you'd like to sponsor Dynamic Black Facts, hit me up at 615-554-0568, and we'll put together a sponsorship package for you I think you'll enjoy. Isn't that unique about Uncle Tom? Are you just now knowing this? How long have you heard the frame, the term Uncle Tom? Obviously coined in the Harlem Renaissance by James Weldon Johnson and others. But the fact of the matter is, there are different forms of resistance. The fact of the matter is, long as you're resisting. The day that you give up resisting, then you are truly a slave. Everybody has their roles to play. Uncle Tom, in the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, apparently had his. And I can certainly understand how black men who were struggling for equality in real life could read that text and be offended by Uncle Tom. But when you see the culmination of who Uncle Tom was based on, Josiah Henson, and what he became, then you have to admire Uncle Tom. He helped people to escape. He hid. He wouldn't turn them in. He wouldn't beat black women. He wouldn't beat other slaves. He helped over 100 slaves get freedom on the Underground Railroad. Wow. That's a negative connotation. And the reason it has been perpetuated is because, what do I always say? We don't read our history. What you should be calling these sellout Negroes are Sambos. That's what they are. Sambo in the book was a murderer. He hated himself and he hated black people. And he did the master's billing. So no, they're not Uncle Toms. Tell your friends, and I posted this article on my wall. Go out and read it for yourself. Share it. See, the ignorance of not knowing is not seeking truth. So if you continue to go around and using the terminology Uncle Tom, then that's the ignorance. Because certainly Uncle Tom was far from being the negative image that many have portrayed him to be. And that's our black fact for today. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us. We're going to go out and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll jump into some of the headlines. When we come back, I want to talk about Michael Bloomberg being in Little Rock. I do. I want to talk about it, and I want to know how many of you cool cats marched in the parade with him. And how many of you all believe that this rich white man who helped lock up hundreds of your black males really give a damn about black people? You're about to be bamboozled again. When are you going to wake up? Back in a moment. It's Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices, and damn, our common sense on joinetradio.com.
Business owners, can I talk to you for a moment? How many people have come up to you and said, hey, I didn't know you had a business? Yeah, that could happen.
This is so good.
I have a solution for you. Advertise.
This is my homemade tea. Well, actually, I have to be honest, this is my mom's tea.
And you're in business. I know what you're thinking.
It has a combination of nutmeg, allspice, ginger, cinnamon sticks, and citrus juices, a combination of citrus juices. I'm not going to tell you what those are because then you'll be trying to make it. And you brew the tea and mix all that stuff together, add some honey. Oh my God. This stuff right here is fire.
At joinetradio.com. Here's the number. Call me 615-554-0568. We are here to assist you in building your brand.
Hi, I'm attorney Theodore Thompson from the Thompson Law Firm, and I want to help with your legal matters. Whether it's criminal defense, bankruptcy, personal injury, or family law, I want to help you. I can be reached at 501-503-5095. Don't face your legal issues alone. You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with the best legal representation. Our office address is 415 North McKinley, Suite 710 in Little Rock. I'm attorney Theodore Thompson, and I want to provide you with the best legal representation.
Serving the families of Clark County and the surrounding area since 1966, it's Mitchell Funeral Home. Understanding that a funeral is a celebration of life, the entire staff of Mitchell Funeral Home takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional service they offer. Cremations, funeral plannings, burial policies, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are a few of the services we offer. Mitchell Funeral Home, Arkadelphia, 870-246-2611. Mitchell Funeral Home. Quality you can appreciate, service you can depend on.
One of the secrets Jesus talked about when he talked about, I will give you the keys of the kingdom, is the principle of management.
Having a credit crunch on uncertain financial future?
Boss up your credit score with WealthLux Credit Solutions. $99 down, $99 per month.
That's WealthLux Credit Solutions.
We can help you with bankruptcies, late payments, public records, judgments, evictions, foreclosures, identity theft, and...
You say I beat you to it, Jackie.
Call now for a quick response.
501-352-1778.
Go deep.
Oh, you're talking about Bloomberg. Okay.
WealthLuxConcierge.com. Text credit at 501-352-1778. For every no, your credit will be the key to your yes. WealthLuxConcierge.com. WealthLuxConcierge.com.
For WealthLux Credit Solutions.
All right, welcome back to the show. Robert Webb is out today. He may get here by 1. If not, he'll be back tomorrow. I had meant to talk about this Bloomberg thing the other day, but some of the other things kind of clouded everything. I do want to talk about it today. Yeah, I want to talk about it today. Because it's important for us to talk about this. Because Michael Bloomberg kind of snuck in town. Snuck. I think that's spelled S-U-S-N-U-C-K, snuck. You know, it's bad when you say something a word that doesn't even exist and then you try to spell it. I do that to my friends all the time when they make up words. I say, spell that for me, please, so I can try to Google it. But anyway, Michael Bloomberg snuck in town the other week for Martin Luther King's parade and was marching in the parade. Now, if you don't know Michael Bloomberg, you've been seeing, he got fired at 39, ends up becoming a multi-billionaire, yada, yada, yada. But see, here's the thing that we as people have got to learn. Rich people don't give a damn about poor people. Let me say that again. Rich people don't give a damn about poor people. So when they run for office, they're not running for office to benefit you poor people. How can they relate to you? They've never had to eat a hot dog with white bread. They've never eaten a ketchup sandwich. They've never even eaten a spaghetti sandwich. They've never went without eating, period. They've never went where they had to stay at home when the lights were turned off because mama and daddy couldn't afford the light bill. They've never ran out of gas because you don't have gas money to get to work. They've never been fired because the boss doesn't like them. They've never been discriminated against because of the color of their skin. Yet, they are always trying to convince us that they know what's good for us. And I say us because I'm poor too. Let me say this again. Rich people don't give a damn about poor folk. So when they are running into, see again, we talked a lot yesterday on the show about becoming conscious with your vote. It's more than just going out and pulling the lever in the ballot box. You have got to become more conscious, not just of your vote, but at least the people that are running to get your vote. So in this segment, I want to remind you about Michael Bloomberg. And it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't, we don't have to list a lot of different things. I only need to mention one thing. I only need to mention one thing, but let me give you some background. During slavery and Jim Crow, if you were a black male and you didn't have the proper papers and were accosted by what has evolved into police today, slave hunters, then you could be kidnapped, you could be killed, you could be detained for numerous days, never to be seen again. That could happen to you. That was the early stages of stop and frisk. That was the early stages of stop and frisk. Let's bring it forward to the 21st century because it's important for us to understand. Over the last 10 years, there were a lot of state who passed or cities, I should say, who passed onerous and racist and constitutionally challenging stop and frisk laws, which basically said that police could accost and stop you and search you without probable cause. I don't know why the ACLU and the powers that be who claim that they are for the benefit of black people and the underserved and underprivileged did not take this to court. But it roamed and went on for years where black men were being accosted. Here's some information. An appalling statistic about racial profiling comes from the 2012 New York Civil Liberties Union report on the New York Police Department's racist stop and frisk policy. In 2011, the NYPD searched 168,126 young black men between the ages of 14 and 24. Depending on your knowledge of the relationship between crime, race, and population statistics, that might not sound alarming until you realize one thing. In 2011, the entire population of black men in New York City was 158,406. Let me say that again. Under Bloomberg, NYPD stopped and frisked 168,126 men, young black men between the ages of 14 and 24. The entire population of black men in New York City at that time was only 158,406. So they illegally stopped and searched, they racially profiled. This is crazy. 10,000 more young black men than actually lived in the city of New York. The NYPD found a way to conduct unconstitutional searches on more black men than there were in existence. To be clear, it was unconstitutional. In October 2014, much to the dismay of Stop and Frisk biggest supporter, New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, a federal appeals court ordered the city overhaul its stop and frisk practices on the grounds that it discriminated against black and Latino citizens. 5 years later, Bloomberg apologized for his role in overseeing a 7-fold increase in stop and frisk incidents. On this past Wednesday, the former mayor and presidential candidate stopped by The View to pitch himself as an alternative to Donald Trump and Trump's racist policies by lying. Don't worry, he can afford a new one. Between 2014 and 2017, black and Latino males between the ages of 14 and 24 were 38% more of the reported stops, despite being 5% of the city's population. Young black male and Latino males were innocent 80% of the time. Confronted by host Sonny Hostin, Bloomberg attempted to white-splain his way out of the racist policy by insisting he was looking out for black people when he turned the police department into modern-day slave catchers. Seriously, why is Meghan McCain's microphone set to the same volume of Sonny? Hostin is an award-winning former U.S. prosecutor who prosecuted sex crimes. What happened between January and November that caused this change of heart? Because it sounds like a political move. This is Bloomberg. When I got elected, I took a look. There were 650 murders a year in New York City. Most of them were young minority men, I said. We have to stop this. That's where my heart is. That's what I wanted to do. And I would do virtually anything I could, anything the professionals gave me some advice to do. Then Bloomberg reached into his reserve of Caucasian chicanery, pulled out a Ziploc bag of well-preserved BS and threw it on the wall to see if it sticks. And when I left office, the number of homicides was down 300. So it saved a lot of lives. But during that period, and looking back, it certainly got out of hand and we stopped more. The courts had said we could do this. And the other thing, the bottom line is, when I saw we had gone way overboard, I stopped it. And by the time I left office, we had cut 95% of it out. Then I apologized when enough people said to me that it was wrong and I wish I had done it earlier. I just didn't. So you apologize and go on. Here's the bottom line. And by the way, this piece is from The Root, written by Michael Harriot. Does good work, by the way. Bloomberg didn't stop on his own accord. A federal court made him stop. Bloomberg knew he had a racist policy. If you want to do stop and frisk, why were you only stopping and frisking black males and Latino males? Why weren't you stopping and frisking white males? Bloomberg knew exactly what he was doing. Bloomberg came in with a racist policy that we have to control the blacks. The blacks are the problem. Bloomberg, if you really gave a damn, you would have made sure part of the reason, and we say this over and over again on this show, is that part of the reason crime exists in poor economic areas is because people have no hope and they have no jobs. Without jobs, there is no hope. So then you get into the survival mode. Remember I told you about the movie City of Angels that is based in Brazil, and it talks about the slums in Brazil. Remember when I told you, I talked about this about 2 years ago, and I watched this movie. It was on Netflix, and I was so enthralled by it. It was, by the way, it was in Portuguese. But it didn't need to be in English for you to understand what was going on. And that was people being thrown away and people having to survive. And little kids as low as 9 and 10 years old acting as roving gangs, robbing, killing, selling drugs just to survive. And there was the hope of one person who wanted to get out of that slum in order to become a photographer, and fortunately he ultimately did, to document this story. Now, what does Sao Paulo, Brazil have to do with New York City or any city in America? Any city in America, and the common thread is depression, economic depression. And where there is economic depression, there will be violence. I'm not condoning it. That's a fact. That's anywhere you on this earth where there is economic depression, there will be violence. If you want to stop the economic depression, the violence, then stop the economic depression. But Michael Bloomberg didn't even say anything about that. Michael Bloomberg came in as the great white hope, the great white savior to save black people from themselves, when it was in fact the very white policies that had degraded black people to the positions that they were in. And then you turn around and you blame them for your policies, and then you take a policy and you twist your fingers around their neck to squeeze more air out of them. That was Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg doesn't give a damn about black people. Michael Bloomberg doesn't give a damn about poor people. Michael Bloomberg is an egomaniac. Michael Bloomberg, along with Tom Steyer, has hijacked the presidential process. Because we all know that it takes money to win a presidential candidacy in this country. Those guys don't need to go through the traditional ways to become president. And some of you all say, well, that's a good thing. Well, no, it isn't. Because anybody who spends the right amount of money, because many of you all are so gullible. See, it wouldn't be that bad if you all were an informed electorate. So it wouldn't matter how much money that anyone spent, because if you are an informed electorate, then you would know that they're blowing smoke up your butts and telling you it's a campfire and giving you marshmallows. But because you are an informed electorate and you base your vote on what you see on TV, then it's very easy for a Michael Bloomberg to lie to you. Michael Bloomberg doesn't give a damn about black people. Because if Michael Bloomberg gave a damn about black people, then he would not have instituted a policy that racially profiled black people. So now he wants to come to your community and ask for your vote. And I see a lot of people, black, who are posting his dribble on Facebook. Are y'all crazy? Some of you all are my friends. Some of you all voted for Donald Trump. What did you get from that idiot? Oh, you say, well, Michael Bloomberg's not like Donald Trump. He still has the same policies. And he put into effect. Let me say this again. 95% of the people, 95% of the stop and frisk, the New York Police Department stopped more than 500,000 people every year until Bloomberg's last year in office, when the total number of stops dropped dramatically. It wasn't Bloomberg after friends came to him and said, look, how many people in the first year that you instituted your policy, Michael Bloomberg, are you telling me that no one came to you and said, hey, Mr. Mayor, this is a racist policy, but you kept the policy in place. You went off it for 5 years. You kept the policy in place. Are you saying that after the second year, no one came to you and said, hey, look, this is a racist policy? Surely after the third year, Michael Bloomberg, someone said, hey, this is a racist policy, because guess what? You were there, the city of New York was then sued. And as it wound its way through the court, Michael Bloomberg, at any point that you say, hey, wait a minute, these people are serious enough to take me to court, why don't I just kill the policy? But you did not, Michael Bloomberg. It wasn't until the courts decided that your policy was racist. See, Michael Bloomberg is doing what many whites want blacks to do about slavery. Oh, that's over. I apologize. Y'all need to move on. That's what Michael Bloomberg thinks that, hey, I apologize. Hey, I messed up. Hey, whatever. Move on. On to the next racist policy. If y'all just elect me president, I may not institute any more racist policies against black people. That's Michael Bloomberg. So he had the unmitigated gall to come to Little Rock and march in the parade for Martin Luther King. And many of y'all were like, oh, get it. Oh, it's Michael Bloomberg. Oh, look here, Little Rock. Did he answer any questions by the media? Did he even tell anybody he was coming? See, that tells you right there that if he was sincere about black issues, then he would have said, hey, I'm coming to Little Rock to march in Dr. King's parade, and I will have a press conference. Did he have a press conference, anybody? I don't know. He may have. I didn't see it. I saw him fronting and waving in the parade. Hey, I'm Michael Bloomberg. See, I'm walking in y'all neighborhood in the black man's parade, who I don't give a damn about. Had Martin King been in New York City under Michael Bloomberg, Martin King would have been stopped and frisked. So the question that I have to ask each of you is, why do you all keep falling for the okie doke? Why? Why do y'all keep falling for this? Rich people don't give a damn about your poor black asses. I'm sorry to be frank. I'm just trying to be truthful here. They don't care about y'all. They could care less whether or not you survive. You said, well, Dave, why do you say that? Well, there's prima facie evidence. Rich people, the top 10% of rich people in America make more money than the bottom 90% of regular Joe Blows like you and I. They don't pay you a living wage. Right now, today in America, minimum wage across this country, if you work a 40-hour-a-week minimum wage job, you still can't pay your rent. So tell me again how rich people care about you. So tell me again how Michael Bloomberg cares about you. I'm trying to figure it out because, see, he running the okie doke. Y'all know what the okie doke is. You know, back in the day, the pigeon drop, you know, people would be at the bank hanging out in the parking lot and you on a Friday afternoon and you go to the bank. Y'all remember these stories? They used to call it the pigeon drop. And you go to the bank and this lady, if you were a guy, this cute little lady show up and say, oh, look, can you do me a favor? Will you cash this check for me? And if you cash this check, I'll give you half. I just need this part, but I don't have a bank account here. I'm from out of town. So I need to cash this check. So what you do is, all you got to do is sign it off and deposit it into your account. Bring me back half and the rest is yours. Long after you realize that you've got the pigeon dropped on you. That's what Michael Bloomberg is trying to do to the black community. It doesn't matter that I racially profiled your black children. It doesn't matter that I passed policies that were anti-minority. I apologize for that. I'm moving on. Just like this government said. But here's the funny thing. The government ain't even apologized for slavery. But they're moving on. Why are you talking about that now? This is Michael Bloomberg. Why y'all talking? Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, I had one of the most racist policies in the history of the city of New York. I had one of the most racist policies, but that's okay now. I apologize for that. We ain't talking about that no more. Yeah, I had 168,000 stops for stop and frisk. It doesn't matter that there was only 158,000 black men between that age in New York. That wasn't racist. I was just trying to help y'all. That's Michael Bloomberg, man. I was just trying to help y'all, man. by throwing them in jail, by violating their constitutional rights of illegal search and seizure. Fahim said incoming housing disparities increased during Bloomberg's administration. Well, guess what? Who did that directly affect? Black people, poor people, Latino people. And now you got the unmitigated gall to pretend that you give a damn about black people. And there are some black people out there who are pushing his message. Are y'all crazy? Are y'all crazy? Well, I should not ask if you're crazy because I know many of you all are. I know many of you all are so detached from who you are, what you stand for, that you're willing to push. You know, I'm reminded of that quote that I read last week. The trees kept voting for the axe because the axe convinced them that he was just like them because he too was made of wood. Man, that is a profound quote. The trees kept voting for the axe because the axe convinced them that he too was made of wood. We are crazy. We have been so brainwashed to believe that a rich white man who enacted policies to lock us up was doing that for our benefit. So now he can parade through your neighborhoods and you all don't accost him. You all don't question him. You all don't egg him. Michael Bloomberg should have been egged out of Little Rock on Monday. He should have been booed right back on that lying plane that he came here on. But because we are so backwards, we are so ignorant to our history, and we are so infatuated by money and power that we don't care how one gets that money and power and who he steps on, even if that person he steps on are our people. So I can tell you right off the bat, I'm not voting for Michael Bloomberg. I'm like Robert said yesterday, I'm hard pressed to vote for a prosecuting attorney. Someone who used the system to lock up black people. I can't do that. I can't do it. I can't sell my soul for 30 pieces of silver. I'm not perfect. I'm going to tell you, I'm not perfect. I'm 58 years old. Could I use some extra income? Yes, I could. But the bottom line is, I cannot sleep at night if I sell my soul. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. I'm telling you, I'm not perfect. But if you walk in here today and say, hey, Dave, I'll give you $100,000 if you start espousing Republican mantras. I'm sorry, fellas. I couldn't do it. Because at the end of the day, I still have to live with myself. And the only thing that I have that's worth anything to me is my integrity. May not be worth anything to you. Yours may be able to be bought. But I would like to think that mine can't. Integrity. Is it just a selfie with someone who claims that they care about us? Is it a handshake? Is it a couple of $100s in your bank account? Everybody has that price. Do you have a price for your integrity? The government's not going to save you. I've said it over and over again. No one can save us from us for us but us. And no matter how you continue to quick kick and scream and say that, oh, David don't know what the hell he's talking about, I have prima facie evidence to prove that this government is not going to save us. Pick a year. Pick any year from the past. That's my evidence. Now, what is your evidence to say that this government will save us? They've had 200 years. Back in a moment. Black Focus Radio. Our issues. Our solutions. Our voices. On joynetradio.com. Yeah, I know. He's throwing a lot of money around for him.
Folks, are you looking for a place to exchange ideas and talk about the issues that affect our community? Then join me, David W. Coleman, and my co-host, Robert Webb, for Black Focus Radio every Monday through Friday, noon to 2 p.m. on joynetradio.com. We like to say, it's our issues, our solutions, our voices. Download the latest podcast on your favorite platform. Also catch us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. That's Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Hello to quality time at Marco's. Hello to being a game changer, an original, and to those who make it authentic.
Yeah, he was with our local mayor, too.
Founders Select Pizza, Old World Pepperoni, sliced Italian sausage, mushrooms, on dough made fresh every day, and a sauce from the original Gianmarco recipe. Hello to an Old World original. Every store, every day, the Italian way. Hello, Primo.
Serving the families of Clark County and the surrounding area since 1966, it's Mitchell Funeral Home. Understanding that a funeral is a celebration of life, the entire staff of Mitchell Funeral Home takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional service they offer. Cremations, funeral plannings, burial policies, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are a few of the services we offer. Mitchell Funeral Home, Arkadelphia, 870-246-2611. Mitchell Funeral Home. Quality you can appreciate, service you can depend on.
I'm so glad I found a Kick Above. It's like my very own personal training studio. A Kick Above removed the guesswork and intimidation and offered me a very supportive and structured environment specific to my personal goals. Kim Leverett and her certified personal trainers even offered nutritional guidelines for my personal workout. It's about me at a Kick Above. Call 501-868-8850 or go to akickabove.com. Now, what am I wearing tonight? Thanks to a Kick Above, I look marvelous.
Hi, this is Alvin from Habibi's 4317 East Broadway in North Little Rock. We still have the green top at your very next stop. The same great service, but more on it. Give us a call, 501-663-1553 or 664-2992, or call our toll-free number, 1-877-HABIBI-1. Diapers, pull-ups, hospital beds, wheelchairs, Simply Fit, diabetic supplies, underpads, and more. Your durable medical supply center.
Let's it fly deep.
Hey, this is Reggie Swinton, former Dallas Cowboy football player, and I'm starting my own radio show with co-host Mike Nichols called Wide Open. We will be talking about youth football and all other sports dealing with the youth. This is one show you do not want to miss. Join me every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Myself and Mike bring you the latest and greatest news on the youth around Central Arkansas, around the state of Arkansas, right here on joynetradio.com.
You got it. Info. Each answer to your aggravation.
expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman, and
All right, welcome back to the second hour of the show, Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. Robert Webb is out today. This hour, I'm going to give you 20 quotes. By the end of the hour, I would have given you 20 quotes that you probably not heard that are from Martin Luther King Jr. And this week I've been on a mission. Yesterday, I told you that I did not attend one Martin Luther King commemoration. There's a reason why. Because his story, his life, his works, his words have been sanitized and bastardized to make people comfortable with Martin Luther King. You all remember at the beginning of this show, I talked about Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. And many critics of that work, black critics, said that Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel was written to make white people feel okay. That's what they've done to Martin Luther King. See, there was a method in my madness to reading about Uncle Tom, because this is where I was headed. So today, this hour, we're going to go over 20 quotes that Martin Luther King said. And I promise you, you've not heard half of them. And they're going to give you an idea who the real Dr. King was. He wasn't this passive-minded person who believed that all we need to do is march, pray, and sing Kumbaya, and we shall overcome. He was a convicted man who understood the racism that was going on in America. And I have prima facie evidence to prove it, regardless of what your preacher said yesterday, regardless of what your white politician said yesterday, regardless of Mike Bloomberg said yesterday. Because if they believed in what Dr. King talked about, wouldn't they be actively working to bring his dream to fruition? Think about that. Before we get into that, though, I want to remind you that Charles Starks, the murderer of Bradley Blackshire, is now back on the police department's force. He has been assigned to training, from what I understand. Now, let me ask you a question. Who and what will he train? He's back on your dole, the taxpayer. Now, don't be surprised if Charles Starks later on files for disability, and he'll be able to live on disability, on the taxpayer, for the rest of his life, because the stress of murdering a black man has just been too much on him. This is the new trend across the country. This is the new trend across the country. Is that they kill a black person, and then they claim that the stress of killing a black person, an unarmed black person, where they've shot him in the back, or they've choked him to death, or whatever despicable means that they've used to be slave hunters and kill a black man, now the trend is that, hey, I'm going to file disability and live the rest of my life claiming PTSD and live off the taxpayers' dole. So don't be surprised if Charles Starks does the same. Tanya says, other police, how to kill and get away with it. See, they've been talking about this on their boards for decades. When they started going into some of the police message boards and they were seeing things like kill a nigger and get paid vacation, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. So I just wanted to warn you all that he's back. We don't know that he'll be patrolling, at least not yet, but he very well could. They could slip him out on the streets. And if he's training someone, why would I want Charles Starks to train anyone? How do you train someone when you violated company policy, according to the report from the police department? How are you training anyone when you violated company policy? I'm confused with that. Can y'all help me out? But Charles Starks is back. So one of the things that I want to ask each of you, as I say every time one of these incidents occur, what are you going to do about it? They keep happening, so you hadn't done anything about it yet. What are you going to do about it? It's going to happen again, and it's going to happen again, and it's going to happen again until black people get tired of being sick and tired. Until true leaders emerge and say, hey, we've had enough. Let's stop spending our money. But even before we can get to that point, is that you have to have leadership within your own mind. You have to get angry enough that you want to do something about it. And when there's a call to action, you will not question. You will simply say, let's do it. Until we get to that point, they're going to continue to kill our children. Until we get to the point where we've had enough, where we don't debate whether or not we need reparations, that we debate how we're going to pool our money and spend it with one another. This is going to continue. So we can raise our arms and wave them in the air just like we don't care. But it's going to continue. It's time for black people to stand up and stand with black people. That march in Virginia on Dr. King's Day should tell black people a lot. I certainly hope that you weren't sitting on your TV watching and saying, oh, look at all them crazy ass white folks. No, don't say that. What you should have been saying is, honey, we need to get another gun. Honey, do we have another gun? Do we have enough guns? Do we have enough ammo? And then you should have been ready to take your children out to the hunting range and have target practice. There's a group on Facebook called the Survival Sisters. They are two sisters. They're black. Their father has taught them all about survival. We need, just like you're saying, we ought to be teaching our children home economics or how to buy a house. Black people need to be teaching their children how to defend themselves. Because what you saw in Virginia on Martin Luther King's birthday were a bunch of white racists who are in fear of losing their power. That's what all of this is all about. We've been saying it for years. Ever since we started this show, I've been talking to you about white genetic annihilation. Here's a quote from Dr. King. And what is it America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice and humanity. Number two, whites, it must frankly be said, are not putting in any similar mass effort to re-educate themselves out of their racial ignorance. It is an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have so little to learn. The reality of substantial investment to assist Negroes into the 20th century, adjusting to Negro neighbors and genuine school integration is still a nightmare for all too many white Americans. Dr. King said this back in the 60s. What you're seeing today is that lack of adjustment. What you saw in Virginia is white men, just as they did a few years ago, saying, we will not be replaced. I saw a fascinating cartoon the other day, and I posted it on my wall. And the wall has, the cartoon is centered on one lonesome white male who is standing in the circle of all types of ethnic groups who are going about their business, whether they be Black, Asian, Latino, interracially married, it doesn't matter. And these individuals are going about their business basically ignoring the white male standing in the center who has a automatic weapon on his shoulder, and he's saying to himself, I feel threatened. In other words, the white male doesn't like the way America is changing, where it doesn't look to him for the answers. And it's eating them alive. So if you've read The ISIS Papers by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she talks about phallic symbols and how the gun is a substitution for power in the white man. That's his phallic symbol. So what do we see at these marches? Oh, my brothers and sisters, you must read the ISIS Papers, because you begin to understand. You have to look beyond what you see. You have to try to look into a man's actions, his mind, and why does a race of people hate another race of people? The ISIS Papers dares to examine that. So, what you're having today is white males feeling rejected. They can no longer walk up to a woman in the office and squeeze her breast. They can no longer walk up to a woman in the office and slap her on the ass. They can no longer force a woman to have sex with them for fear that if she tells, she will lose her job. It ain't like the old days, is it, white boy? No, it isn't. We have to be concerned. And we have to be willing to meet force with force. Because as my co-host so eloquently states on a regular basis, that America was birthed out of violence. The only thing that America understands is violence. So when they try to condemn riots of the poor, a riot is nothing more than the voice of the unheard. But it has been America who has used riotous tactics across the world to get what they wanted. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. 855-525-5683. Do you have a gun? Do you have more than one? You should get one. Teach your family how to shoot. Teach your children how to shoot. Teach your children how to defend your house. There have been stories coming out of Virginia that many of those white men were hoping something would pop off so they could start a race war. Because see, here's what white men want, is a race war so they can try and reclaim their position of authority. See, what you all don't understand is that the election of Barack Obama damaged a lot of white male psyches out there. I remember prior to Obama being elected that there were many of them were saying, I'd kill myself over my dead body before as a black man runs this country. That affected them psychologically. And the fact that they've already known about white genetic annihilation and we're just now beginning to figure it out. Many of our leaders and our uninformed are sitting around saying, I don't understand why white folks doing this. That's because you're ignorant. You're not paying attention. This is all about white genetic annihilation. They are afraid of becoming a minority. I told you last week by 2050, Africans will be the majority in the world. By 2042, white folks for the first time in America will be minorities. This is their fear. That's why the Republican Party is so desperately appointing judges who are not even qualified. Long as they espouse a right-wing tendency, they're appointing them. Because they're hoping that by appointing what they used to call activist judges, see, this is why I tell you the Republican Party is nothing but hypocritical, racist, and repugnant. Because they used to always complain about the rule of law and the Democrats not appointing, or the Democrats appointing activist judges. So here are what the Republicans are doing right now, appointing activist judges, not based on the rule of law, but based on right-wing ideologies. And you all sit around and think this is okay. What's wrong with y'all? What's wrong with y'all? We sit around and we think that it's okay that if you are accused of a crime and you say you're innocent, yet you refuse to put up anything to prove your innocence, even though that the evidence proves your guilt. And we think that's okay. This is white man's logic. This is their logic. These were the same people who said it was okay to use the Bible as a means to enslave a people. These were the same people who used the Bible to rape young girls and young boys. These are the same people who sit in Congress today, Mitch McConnell, whose family profited from slavery. Both of his great-great-grandfathers. I read that document to you last week. And you want to trust that they're going to be just for people of color? These are men who are afraid of losing power. And they are willing to do anything and everything they can to maintain their power. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language that made everything black ugly and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms to the word black. It's always something degrading, low, and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, clean. Well, I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language right so that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black. I'm proud of it. I'm black. And I'm beautiful. The Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. These quotes I'm reading are from Dr. King, and I'm tying it into our conversation today because you have to understand that the message that they've sanitized for Dr. King is a lie and has been a lie. Dr. King understood significantly what white supremacy was all about. He understood what white legislators and lawmakers were all about and did not hesitate to speak as such. It is you, black people, who have allowed the media to steal his legacy. Every year, you're sitting up in churches, y'all are talking about the same thing, yet you refuse to mobilize to change the circumstances. I am so sick and tired of hearing people ask the question, where is our next Dr. King? There will never be another Dr. King. How about your son or your daughter, empowered by the words of Malcolm and Martin? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. It's 2020. We just had a police officer use police brutality to murder a black man without a judge, jury, and he become an executioner, and we sit and do nothing. But Dr. King said we can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. Damn. That was damn near 50 years ago, and we're still dealing with unspeakable horrors of police brutality. Tell me how things have changed, my brothers and sisters. Tell me when you're going to get tired of being sick and tired. Tell me when you're going to quit sitting on your hands and say, oh, that's just the white man's system. There's nothing we can do about it. Yeah, you can do something about it. You don't have to fire a shot. How difficult it is to hear, however shocking it is to hear. We've got to face the fact that America is a racist country. That's Dr. Martin Luther King who said that. That's Dr. King who said that. Where are your black leaders today who are saying that? Because not much has changed. Many of your black leaders are Sambos. They're tap dancing and doing the master's bidding. Oh, I need you to keep your congregation quiet. Y'all hadn't heard these quotes, have you? Y'all haven't heard them. 20 quotes that Martin Luther King said that you don't hear. What we're seeing today in Congress is that white folks, they will fix the rules to benefit themselves. Dr. King said there aren't enough white persons in our country who are willing to cherish democratic principles over privilege. Hello, let me read that again. There aren't enough white persons in our country who are willing to cherish democratic principles over privilege. The election of Donald Trump and what is going on today in Congress proves that point unequivocally. Isn't it amazing that when you really dive into who Dr. King was and what he stood for, you can begin to understand what he believed? It wasn't about cleaning up neighborhoods. It wasn't about a day of service. It was about a life of service to his people. Now, I'm not being critical because you go to a homeless shelter on Dr. King's Day and help homeless people, or you help Habitat for Humanities. But is that Dr. King's real message? What out of this weekend, what out of Monday did black people get to empower them to move forward? Can y'all tell me? What out of this weekend, what out of any of these commemorations of Dr. King has black people gotten to move forward? Oh, y'all have these wonderful programs. These choirs are singing to the edifices of God, lifting every voice, making you feel good. But when you leave that edifice, when you leave that sanctuary, when you leave that commemoration, what have you gotten but a good feeling? Does it empower you to move forward? Does it empower you to go and help a homeless person? That ain't helping your people. Because you know what? If you help your people, then there wouldn't be so many black homeless people. Hello? You see, you all have been hoodwinked. Is that, hey, every January, I'm going to go to a Martin Luther King celebration, and that's going to make me feel good. Oh, we got coats up. Oh, we got a food pantry. Oh, we take people to the doctor. How does that help stop the bigotry and the racism that put those people in that situation in the first place? You see, riots are not caused by white resistance. They are the consequences of it. Let me read that again. Riots are not the causes of white resistance. They are the consequences of it. Yeah, these are quotes Dr. King said. You said, hey, Dr. King, we love us some Dr. King. Dr. King, he was this law-abiding, peaceful person. No, Dr. King understood the insidiousness of racism and bigotry, and he fought to undermine it by any means necessary. See, at first he didn't understand Malcolm X, but then as he began to fight in this struggle, he and Malcolm X became one and realized, Dr. King, that, hey, this brother Malcolm has some points here that we got to start looking at. One has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. But see, yesterday, I'll bet you they didn't talk about any of these quotes from Dr. King. I'll bet you if you went and you had, because I'm kind of over white people telling me about Martin Luther King. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. And I'm simply over about white politicians, especially Republicans, trying to tell me about Martin Luther King. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. You cannot speak here. You're lucky I let you in the building. That's why Bloomberg here in Little Rock marching in that parade was an offense to Dr. King. That's why I spent all last hour talking about Bloomberg. I'm just saying. Dr. Quinn says once Martin's mental narrative shifted to align with Brother Malcolm, an immediate target was on his back. The reason the target was on his back because white people began to realize that two forces, powerful black forces, had joined together. The biggest fear of white people in America today is black people waking up. I saw a wonderful picture on Facebook the other day, and it was a picture of a father and a mother. The mother was pregnant. She looked about 8 or 9 months. She was laying in the bed beside the father. And in this big, huge bed, there were 5 other children doing various things like sleeping or reading a book. And the caption said on that picture, the biggest thing that white America fears is the black family. Because if the black family comes together, and I'm not necessarily talking about immediate brother and sister blood, I'm talking about the black people as a whole. Because the biggest fear of white people is black people coming together, because white people make billions of dollars off of ignorance of black people. I simply point to the sporting events. The argument came up, and I talked about this on the show Saturday. The argument came up that if we really want black football coaches, why aren't 70% of those black NFL stars demanding black coaches? Hello? You know why? Because they are suffering from white supremacy. They have been infected. They don't understand. We know through experience. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. Let me say that again. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. What does that mean? What is that saying? That is simply saying that all of you who have sat around and believed that the government was going to help you overcome the bigotry and the racism that this country has imposed upon you, you are fooling yourself. You must demand it. You must demand it every moment of your day, every day of your life. Because if you don't demand it, you'll never get it. Why aren't we talking about what Dr. King really said? Because I know whatever event you went to on Monday, they were talking about all these rosy things about Dr. King, and he was this and he was that. What a great man. He believed in race relations, and they've been lying to you. They don't want you to know who the real Martin Luther King was. You remember the letter I read last Friday that the FBI sent out to Dr. King? See, that's what they want you to believe. It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can stop him from lynching me, and I think that's pretty important. You see, I'm like Dr. King. I don't care if you love me. I don't care if you hate me because of the hue of my skin. I don't care. Long as you treat me fair. Long as my tax dollars come to my neighborhood, to my schools. See, that's my argument that I've been making for years as it relates to integration. Yeah, look, I don't mind being segregated. You know what? I remember growing up in school and having nothing but black girls and black boys in my classrooms. I loved it. I got a great education. I can remember girls then who have grown up to become beautiful young women. I remember young black boys who were my friends, who was in my go-kart club, who was in my bicycle club, who played touch football with me. All of us black, all of us loving one another, all of us going to each other's homes and being fed by moms or drinking ice cold water out of the hose pipe. I don't need you to feel like I'm somebody, long as you're sending my tax dollars back to me. That's the argument that I've been making for this school thing. Is that okay? Let's start our own charter school. Let's do that. Let's take the money that Walmart wants to give away and let's educate young black men and women. Let's educate them, and not only educate them, give them the real history of black people, not some overwritten, lied about American history that dares to even suggest that Africans came to America as indentured slaves, that Africans enjoyed being slaves and did not revolt, that African women enjoyed being raped and tortured by their white perverters. A riot is the language of the unheard. If you're just now joining me, I'm giving you 20 quotes that Martin Luther King said that nobody wants to talk about because everybody wants to pretend that Martin King was this nice guy who just spoke well, who gave his life and sacrificed for us. No, Martin Luther King didn't give his life. Martin Luther King's life was stolen. Martin Luther King was murdered. Every time we talk about Dr. King, we need to remember that he was murdered by a white society. It wasn't just James Earl Ray. It was in concert with the FBI, the federal government. But you want the government to come save you. Isn't that stupid? Massa, we are sick. It is an unhappy truth that racism is a way of life for the vast majority of white Americans, spoken and unspoken, acknowledged and denied, subtle and sometimes not so subtle. That's what Dr. King said. We see that every day. They don't want to talk about it. Even I hear black people say, oh, I don't want to bring up the racism word because when I don't say racism, then they don't want to talk. If I say that word, they call you everything but the child of God behind your back, but you're afraid to point out racism when it exists. It is an unhappy truth that racism is a way of life for the vast majority of white Americans, spoken and unspoken, acknowledged and denied, subtle and sometimes not so subtle. See, we lived in a generation where subtle racism was still there, and we believed that we were living in a post-racial society. And then along comes Barack Obama and his election, and we began to realize that racism never went away, that it exists today. We began to realize that there is a problem in America. And we are so confused about it that it's kind of like, have you ever caught a deer in the headlights? This is what our black leaders are. They're the deer in the headlights. For a stark moment, when you turn that corner and you see that deer in the road, that deer stops and he looks at you and he's like, what the hell? And then fear takes over and he jets into the woods, or in some cases, he runs into your car. That's what black leaders are today. They are the deer in the headlights. They are that deer. Racism has shown its ugly lights to them, and they are that deer. They're shocked. And they're scurrying to run and hide in the brush. They don't want to confront it. All they know is to flee. White Americans must realize that justice for black people cannot be achieved without radical changes in the structure of our society. The comfortable, entrenched, the privileged cannot continue to tremble at the prospect of change of the status quo. You see, that's the problem. They don't want change. They don't want change. They want to pretend like they want change. They want to come together on Martin Luther King's holiday and sing Kumbaya and we shall overcome. And you have white people, and you sit out there, it is so wonderful. We got white people here, we got black people here, but when they go in the ballot box, they vote against your interest. When they go to their Sunday services, they preach subtle messages of bigotry and racism. Because if they didn't, then Donald Trump would have never been elected in the first place. If they didn't, then the few white evangelicals who have come out against this devil in the White House has been ostracized. True compassion is more than flinging a coin at a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. A government that continues to produce bigotry and racism needs to be reconstructed. That's what this quote is saying. Another quote from Martin King that you didn't hear on Monday, that you probably never heard, because see, no one really wants to say what Martin Luther King stood for. Because see, they knew King, had he had his way, that he was going to unite poor black folks and poor white folks. And understand that the powers that be are your problem, whether they be Republican or Democrat. This is the country of the people, but the people have not understood how to use the country for their benefit because of their ignorance. Many white Americans of good will have mercy, have never connected bigotry with economic exploitation. They have deplored prejudice, but tolerated and ignored economic injustice. Many white Americans of good will have never connected bigotry with economic exploitation. They have deplored prejudice, but tolerated or ignored economic injustice. I mentioned yesterday the story that I posted on my wall. You'll have to go down and search it, about how millions and millions of dollars have been lost in black communities simply because bankers and real estate agents have devalued those communities. Not for any significant reason except for the fact that black people live there. There's another story that I posted on my wall about how black farmers lost billions of dollars in land and money economic exploitation. It began at slavery, when you demanded people, my ancestors, to work for free. It continued with the Freedman's Bureau, where you promised 40 acres and a mule, but you ended up paying white slave owners for the loss of their slaves. And it continued as you stole and took land and you murdered black people. And it continues today as you refuse to even entertain the thought of compensating the ancestors of those black people that you treated unfairly. The majority of white Americans consider themselves sincerely committed to justice for the Negro. They believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth toward a middle-class utopia, embodying racial harmony. But unfortunately, this is a fantasy of self-deception and comfortable vanity. These are quotes Dr. King said that you didn't hear yesterday. So I thought today I would use this last hour of the show to show you how they have sanitized Dr. King, how they've made him into this person who was a great orator, but he had no substance. They want you to believe that Dr. King really didn't understand what he was doing. Dr. King said, we will be extremists for hate or for love. We will be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice. That's Dr. King. And last but not least, the 20 quotes that I've read for you today. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. There you have it. You ever heard those quotes? Did you hear any of those quotes yesterday as you sat at those commemorations? I'm sure those were some wonderful commemorations. No, I'm sure that people spoke well and people sang to the highest note. But what came out of that? What call to action do we have? Every year that you have a Martin Luther King commemoration, there should be a conscientious call to action. And it should be carried out. And then you should look back at the next commemoration and say, did we accomplish our goal? Martin Luther King celebration should be more than feel good. Feel good. I can go down on the corner and feel good. I can go shoot something in my veins and feel good. I can go smoke something and feel good. I can go drink something and feel good. All you got on Monday was a temporary high. Because when you come down off of that high, off of that binger, you begin to realize that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Hello? The reason I'm doing this today is because I'm sick and tired of the lies that we are allowing people to use to keep us in check. Religion, politicians, black politicians, black ministers who have sold out, who have become Sambos. I want our people to be as knowledgeable as I am. You know, the art of leadership, Hobart T. Shaka said this. And you can look at PLOTUS and Obama, and it represents what I'm going to say. You have a great day today, too, Jackie. Is that, see, a great leader surrounds himself with people who are smarter than he is. You know why he does that? Because if I surround myself with people who are, see, that's why I love smart women. See, a great leader will surround himself with people smarter than he or she, simply because when people look back on that administration, they'll say the Coleman administration or the Coleman leadership. And great things will come out of that leadership. But a leader who is an egomaniac will think he knows everything. Even though the walls are falling down around him, he will blame others. That's the dichotomy between Obama and Trump. So what we need to be doing is raising leaders. We need to understand that we don't, look, part of the reason I say this all the time, Robert Webb is smarter than I am. Now don't tell him I told you that. That's why he's on this show. The people that I put on, Keisha Cobb, she's smarter than I am on a lot of things. That's why I put her on this show when she comes on Fridays. Rizal Aaron is smarter than I am. That's why I put him on this show. I'm not intimidated by their knowledge. In fact, I glean knowledge from them. I absorb it. I want it. Now, I don't tell them that because I don't want them to get a big head. I just simply want you all to understand that what history tells us, it is our job to challenge that history. It is our job to research that history. It is our job to tell our story. Dr. Rosie Milligan, if she's never taught me anything else, the one thing that she has put into my mind from the very day that I met her was, who will tell our story? Who will tell the correct story? Because once we pull back the layers of the truth, then we begin to realize who we really are. I hope you've enjoyed the show today. I certainly have. I hope you'll download the podcast if you missed some of the 20 quotes. Now, I didn't tell you a lot of this when I was going through this. I didn't particularly tell you that those were quotes. What I did was I wove those quotes into the conversation today to prove the point that the things Dr. King was saying then are appropriate today, that resonate today. I'm telling you that although you got that fancy car, although you got those letters behind your name, although you got that big pretty house, and you can go in and buy what you want, in the eyes of many, you're still a nigga. And until you understand that, it will continue. So before I leave today, I want to leave you with a graph from the Willie Lynch letter. Let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man and a pregnant nigger woman and his baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use to breaking a horse, combined with some more sustaining factors. What we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature, whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring. We break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that they may be able to get from them useful production for our business and our pleasure. Y'all have a great day.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on journetradio.com.
Yeah, Dr. Quinn, I brought that up yesterday about how religion, if you get an opportunity, go out to my wall and read the story that I read yesterday or touched on about the castration of the black male preacher. It goes into depth about that very thing. I've got to run. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Don't forget the podcast. And if you like, make a donation. Could really use it. Y'all have a great day.